Dr. Behar, you can start.
Okay, well, welcome. Welcome to you all. Consider yourselves to be the early birds. And you know what they say about early birds, right? You get the prize. Um, we are going to have one other informational session for these awards, but this is our first one. So you guys who are here are getting the inside scoop from day one. Am I able to advance these or are you advancing them?
I can do it.
Okay, you can go on to the next one. So we are CHARM. I'm Vicki Behar-Zussman. I'm the lead for the Investigator Development Core, or also known as the Dev Core of CHARM. And we're going to be talking to you about our opportunities that we have for some awards. We have 3 awards that we'll talk about today. One is the Equitable Implementation Science Micro Grant that you'll hear about very shortly. And then the other 2, we sort of lumped them together because they have lots of similarities, but some distinctions that we'll get into today, which are the Pilot Award and the Scholar Award. And then we're going to have some time. We've saved some time at the end to give anybody who's on the call the opportunity to do some brainstorming and just to make it, as simple for you all as possible. We can do that. We'll have some question and answer, but then we have the opportunity to do brainstorming with you one-on-one. So if you have some ideas that you want to run by us to think about, then we can address those in those sessions. Okay. All right. Next one. All right. So CHARM. The mission of CHARM, which is funded by the National Institute of Mental Health, is to promote and support high quality research that's community engaged, addressing mental health and HIV disparities. And we offer expertise, infrastructure, resources to carry out, to design research, to propose research, and then to implement research that's relevant to our mission. And so what we're presenting today as part of the Dev Corps is these opportunities, but also be thinking about these from a different perspective as well. So hopefully everybody on the call is eligible and will be able to apply and will apply. And we'll go over all of those details shortly. But, you may be thinking, gosh, this is a lot of work for something that may or may not happen, right? As you'll see, it's an NIH style application, but think about it from a career development perspective. Put in the work, do the application. If you're successful, wonderful. If you're not successful, we want to keep working with you to keep developing this so that you can submit it for other opportunities. So once you have this nice application, you'll submit it to us, but then it's something that you can continue to use for future use. And maybe you're also doing that with something that you've worked on before and that you've submitted before, and you're going to adapt it for this application. And that's fine as long as it meets our criteria, which we'll go over. So we want to not only give you this opportunity to apply, but we want to work with you through the process during the application period and beyond. If you get the grant to conduct the research, but if you don't get it, to be able to transform it into something that you're able to use in the future, okay? So I'm going to hand things over now to Araceli, who's going to talk about the micro grants, and then we'll get to the Scholar and Pilot Awards.
Thank you, Dr. Behar. So yes, everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Araceli Garcia. I am the core coordinator for the Equitable Implementation Science Core, or EIS for short. And so today I'm going to be describing a little bit about what the EIS microgrants is and what the goal of this funding mechanism is about. So for a little bit of context, Equitable Implementation Science Research aims to advance the science of implementation while promoting social justice and reducing disparities in health and social outcomes. So this type of research really does require very strong partnerships between researchers and implementers to understand each other's needs and work together to facilitate whatever goals are in mind. However, there is a common pitfall in EIS research, and that is starting a partnership simultaneously as you are starting the research project. And so this leads to some challenges that occur because there wasn't sort of like that time frame to think about each other's needs, strengths, priorities, and any other aspects of the research, not aligning goals, or not knowing really what the outcomes that you're looking for are. And so that's the entire reason why the microgrant was created. And the goal is to really just support researchers and implementers before they undertake any research to really get to know each other, learn each other's priorities, strengths, assets, challenges, and decide if working together on a bigger research project makes sense. And so this microgrant is a small funding opportunity that is not meant for research, for undertaking research. The goal of this mechanism really is to simply build the relationship that could lay the groundwork for EIS research in a future grant, whether that be another CHARM award or an NIH grant. Next slide, please. And so a little bit more about the microgrants is that we really are trying to, to build a bridge between implementers and researchers. So we want to make sure that, we're creating this partnership, that we're facilitating this connection, and that just makes everyone understand better what each other's needs are. So who can apply for this microgrant? We're looking for researchers that are early career researchers and are affiliated with the University of Miami or our CHARM affiliated institutions of FIU, FSU, and NOVA. And you must work with an individual, either organization or individual that is an implementer in South Florida. So for implementers, we're also looking for individuals that deliver mental health or HIV services, like I mentioned, in South Florida. We're trying to stay away from the University of Miami and University of Miami health system. So we want people that are not affiliated already with an academic institution, but more so work hands-on with the community more closely. And so for this partnership, we're looking for, the implementer and researcher coming together and having each other as a partner, getting $5,000 to support this 1 year of partnership building activities. And like I mentioned, no research activities are allowed with this grant. It's just for a partnership, building a relationship through this award. Next slide. So for the application includes completing a form that we have that you can obtain by scanning the QR code in this slide. And I can also drop the link in the chat. So the application asks you to describe your overall research goals and program goals that you have in mind from this partnership, that you also describe the partnership that you're seeking to build, and as well as letting us know what the expected outcomes from the partnership will be, which again should not be any sort of research activities. As far as the letter first from the partner, so if you're a researcher, you need to identify an implementation partner, partner up, and make sure that you both align with the same goals and that they can write you a letter of support saying that they agree with the proposed activities. And so same goes for implementers. You must look for a researcher. If you're an implementer and you want to apply, you must look for a researcher, which again needs the letter of support that they agree with the partnership and that you are working together to build this partnership and future research work. And then finally, with your application, we're also looking for a budget with a brief justification of what kind of activities you guys will be covering with this grant. And yes, you can find the full RFA in that link. My email is right there, and I'll also drop it in the chat, but any questions about eligibility of application questions, you can always reach out and we're happy to help. We're also this year trying to really help even more with that bridge and close that gap in terms of if you're a researcher looking for an implementer, we can definitely take some time, talk about it, and help you find an implementer that might suit your needs. And then same goes for implementer. If you have an idea or certain goals in mind and you need to find a researcher, you can come to us, we can talk about it, and then help you find an appropriate researcher for this partnership. And then in the next slide, please. I do want to cover some last points and some frequently asked questions. So the first one is, can I partner with an implementer at UM? So like I mentioned, we're trying to look to build partnerships between individuals at academic institutions and implementers who are not already embedded in academic institutions. So we're trying to stem away from just academic institutions and really get into community implementers. The next question is, what types of things can I support under a microgrant? Like I mentioned, you cannot do any sort of research activity. So what can this microgrant support? Some of the things that we have in mind are some small % effort for the time that you're investing in this partnership. Other things can include site visits, retreats, or conferences, thinking about like local travel costs that it might take you for like mileage, parking, for visiting each other's sites, or any consultation fees that you might need to cover. All of that can be covered with this microgrant, or any other activity that will strengthen the partnership. So what types of things can I not support under a microgrant? So like I mentioned, the only thing that we're not able to support with this microgrant is any sort of research activity. So thinking about paying participants or paying the cab or paying other research-related activities, those will not be supported, and which is why we're looking for you to send over the budget with the application so we can see what kind of expenditures you have in mind. And then finally, can I propose a microgrant with someone that I already work with? So our goal is to build new partnership and to sort of ask people to step out of their box and their network and look for other people that they can do research with and understand each other's communities and goals. However, if you do have someone that you're already working with and you feel like it might be beneficial to take this year of just strengthening the relationship and learning each other's needs a bit more and sort of go back instead of going into right straight into the research. Like we mentioned, that's one of the pitfalls of EIS research, just starting the partnership and starting the research. If you need to go sort of like step back and go back into the partnership and reanalyze where this relationship is, you can definitely do that. Just make sure you build like a strong case with your activities. So yes, like I mentioned, if there's any questions about eligibility, anything about activities that are covered or not covered with this microgrant, always just please reach out to us. I'll go ahead and link my email again in the chat and I'll stick around for any questions. And yes, we look forward to your applications. So I'll send it over again to the DevCore. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Viviana Origian. I'm the co-director of this DevCore, and I'm happy to see that Dr. McIntosh, who's the co-director too, is joining us today. I want to reiterate a comment, an opening remark that Dr. Behar made is, I don't see this as a one-stop opportunity on getting information. The three of us and the DevCore is really committed to supporting the development of future scholars that are committed to doing research in HIV and mental health. So while this is one info session, there's a second one. We are open to conversation and see how can we help you on moving through your career trajectory. And with that, I want to share with you two opportunities, the CHARM Pilot Awards, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about the Scholar Awards. So in particular, these pilot awards are really geared to provide support to conduct community engaged research so that investigators can gather preliminary data that will potentially help and become that pilot data for their future grant application, and hopefully they obtain extramural funds for HIV and mental health research. So it is a traditional pilot award, and as such, it will support 10% of the investigator's time in this effort. So This is to generate new data that will support potentially extramural application. So there is at least one of the pilot awards will be implementation science focused, and we're going to be the priority areas are informed by the EIS core. Next slide. So the other mechanism to support investigators in their career trajectory is the Scholar Awards. And this one provides up to 25% of coverage, and it's intended rather than to collect de novo data or new data, is really to support early career investigators that are aiming to transition to an independent career. And in this type of awards, what we're looking are typically are secondary data analysis, data that has already been collected. So this is the distinction between one or the other award. Next slide. So as the microgrant awards, these awards are open to our partner institutions. So we are looking for applicants at the U, but FSU, FIU, and NOVA. But in the case of non-new applicants, we want to see an established mentorship relationship with UM mentor, that it's a CHARM UM mentor. And we're looking, of course, for full-time faculty members who are in their early career or they are new to HIV and mental health research. And this is the way for the pilot awards. This is the way, their entryway. And for the Scholar Awards, we're looking at full-time faculty members who are as well in the early career. And for early stage investigator, we use the same NIH criteria. So next slide. So postdocs can also apply for these developmental awards, but if they do so, they will be required to submit a letter of support from their chairperson of their home department, so indicating the support for this application and a commitment to a future faculty appointment at the completion of the postdoc. Next slide. Okay, so this is a very extensive list of priority areas of research, but they are very much aligned with the CHARM mission. And definitely we're looking at grants that are gonna understand the, or evaluate the impact of social determinants of health on HIV and mental health disparities, as well as factors of resilience. We are interested in the uptake or the implementation of injectable antiretrovirals for PrEP or HIV treatment. Grants that are focused or applications that are focused on quality of life and the needs of people with HIV and mental health comorbidities. And this could be focused on how to address this these challenges that are also social determinants of health. There is an interest on youth prevention interventions that are addressing HIV and mental health. A population of interest are Haitian Americans that are suffering from HIV and the stigma that they're subject to. The next bullets, with exception of access to substance use and mental health interventions, which is a challenge for HIV populations, are focused on implementation. So developing or pilot testing implementation strategies that might help us reach or adopt or sustain interventions or evidence-based interventions for HIV and mental health, the adaptation of the development of interventions or implementation strategies are also a very important focus of interest, particularly because implementation strategies are where we have an opportunity to address the disparities in mental health and HIV research. So research that focuses on scaling up or scaling out preventive or treatment interventions are also part of the priority areas. And of course, any research area listed in Part 2, Section 1 of Part 20, 304, 308 are of our interest. So this, you will receive these slides. I know that this is a mouthful. If you are worried about does your idea, your research question really fit? We look forward to having a conversation, and maybe we can start in our brainstorming sessions, breakout rooms today to see how they are aligned with the priority areas of research. Next. Okay, so you all saw our RFA for all grants was already released, and all are running on the same deadline. So August 1st is that deadline by 5 p.m. For the Pilot and Scholar Awards, and I really encourage interested or applicants that are committed in pursuing this on engaging and participating in on speed review sessions. So we have 2 speed review sessions. So what you see in the columns of May and June is when are these sessions scheduled. They are optional. So for the May session is scheduled on May the 31st. And because we are offering this service and support, is that your materials, your specific aims, and your community engagement plan, being is that is so instrumental to all applications, is required by May 17th. Similarly, if you're looking forward to having a speed review in June, we will need materials before the June the 24th, which is when the speed review is scheduled. That's why we're asking for these materials by June 10th. I strongly encourage any applicant that is considering this, not only to reach out and explore where are you at, match with the priority areas, but to take advantage of these opportunities. Applicants learn a lot, receive important feedback, and that helps them modify their materials and apply, and hopefully they're successful in getting the award. Next slide. Okay, so when is it that you're expected to hear if you are awarded or not? That's on October. We hope that we can communicate everyone by October. For the Pilot and Scholar Awards, we have some paperwork that it's important for us to submit to NIMH, and that is part of what we're going to be working with awardees to make sure that we can send this package by mid-December so that awardees can start their work by February 1st. So these are, tentative timelines, but pretty much they don't deviate from this. I know Mohammed is with us, and I'm sure he would be able to answer questions that are most tied to timeline and award period, budget period. Next slide. Okay, I think I pass it on to Dr. Bejar.
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Regine. So let's talk about the submission process. And again, this is the submission process for the Pilot and Scholar Awards. A letter of intent is optional, except for people who are postdoctoral associates, where it is required. As Dr. Regine just described, we have the speed review, which is also optional, but really highly encouraged. To get feedback on your specific aims and on your community plan. And that feedback comes from faculty members, from mentors here at CHARM, as well as from community advisory board members. The full application, which I will shortly describe what all the sections are, but the full description, these are submitted through RedCap. Everything's submitted through RedCap. So as was just described, those proposals, so in October or before October, we have a peer review that's internal here at CHARM. It's a peer review very similar to how NIH conducts peer reviews. And then once those decisions are made, the applicants will be informed, and those who are not awarded actually will receive a critique. So you do get feedback regardless of award. And then these have to be approved by NIH, and that's where the second part of this happens. But typically, once things are approved internally, they do tend to be approved by NIH. So it's just an added time frame more than anything else, and a little bit of extra effort. Next slide. Okay, so here's the sections, all right? And like I said at the very beginning, it can feel a little bit daunting, but these are the sections that go into an NIH application. And what we're hoping is that everybody who applies for these will eventually, and actually everybody on the call, will eventually be applying for NIH funding. So these are the standard sections. Public health relevance, which is just a couple of sentences in lay language about what the project is aimed at addressing from a public health perspective. An abstract, which is a sort of a longish paragraph, just like you would use in a publication, just a summary. Specific aims, which is a one-page document, and which I'll be talking a little bit more about. The research strategy, which is 6 pages, and within those 6 pages, I believe, is included the community engagement plan. I actually have to clarify that with you next, whether that's an additional piece or if that's part of the 6 pages. There needs to be a budget and budget justification, just briefly describing, what the money is being used for. The bio sketch of the PI, in addition to the bio sketch of any key personnel. Letters of support from the community provider, from a community partner, from a mentor, etc. And we really would like to see our applicants using the CHARM resources. And also we would like for you all to be suggesting reviewers who you think would be good to review and who don't have a conflict of interest. And also there's a career development piece, which is slightly different based on whether you're applying for a pilot or a scholar award. But again, all of these will be really well described, very extensively described in the full RFA, which we will be providing you a link to. Okay. So I just wanted to pull out, we wanted to really talk a little bit about specific aims, because that's what you need for your speed review, but it's also just absolutely the most important part of any grant application. Because basically what it is, it's a one-page document that's an executive summary of why you're doing what you're doing, what gaps are you addressing in the research, how are you going to do what you're going to do, just very briefly in terms of design, and how this establishes the foundation for your future work. So this is a very, very important part of the application. If you can master writing specific aims, you've got half the work done, because the specific aims really is going to be the blueprint for the rest of the application, right? So it's great to get it right, to get the feedback on it, and we really, really encourage you to do this. And we're happy to, even beyond the speed review, to give you feedback and to give you guidance on how to do this. Next slide. Okay, so just some tips here. This applies to this grant proposal. It also applies to really much any grant proposal. So you know, specific aims is key. And like I said, it's sort of a blueprint for everything else, right? And so you want to make sure that everything is consistent. You want to really create linkages across your application, you know, the research strategy, the developmental aspect of it. You know, what are you getting? How are you growing as a mentee by doing this? How it's going to lead to the next work that you want to do. And so you want everything to really hold together nicely, right? And you should cross-reference things whenever possible across sections. You want to be thinking like a reviewer, and you have to think that the reviewers who are going to be doing this are both faculty and community members. So you need to speak to people who have expertise, and some of the faculty reviewers won't necessarily have expertise in your area as well, right? So you need to be able to communicate to people who really, really know a lot about what you're studying, but also who maybe don't. And so you need to be able to explain things at both levels, right? You want to go for balance, you know, make sure that everything is addressed in that's all the sections, right? Justify if you are making choices that, you know, seem like somebody might ask, you know, why are they doing it this way as opposed to this other way? Well, if you think that that's needed, then provide some justification. Why are you having only certain ages? Why are you having a whole range of ages? Why are you using this kind of measures, et cetera? And you want to demonstrate that you have support. Like I said, we're here to support you, but in addition to that, these are awards for people who are early in their stages of their career. So there's an expectation that you're not really necessarily doing this all on your own, but you have mentors, that you have organizations or partners that you're collaborating with, that you have other scientists that you're collaborating with, et cetera. So show that the study can be done and that you have the support that you need to do it. Next slide. Okay, I think we talked quite a bit about the speed review, but just briefly, this is going to be a critique that you're going to receive. You're going to have one-on-one time with two reviewers at least, who will give you feedback on your specific aims. And as was said earlier by Dr. Reggian, we do require some lead time on getting these materials because we have to share it with the reviewers. And so you need the specific aim, just a one-pager, and the paragraph explaining how the project is going to engage the community. I wanted to mention that community engagement is, in case you haven't gotten the point at this point, community engagement is a key aspect to the work that we do in CHARM. In fact, our community advisory board gives us feedback on the RFA. They contribute ideas to those priority areas. They are involved in the speed review. They are involved in the full review, and they are available for consultation. So we really do want to see meaningful engagement with the community for these applications. So for the speed review, basically, once you've turned in your materials, then on the date of the speed review, there's a 20-minute session with each individual reviewer. So each of you who apply will be speaking to two different reviewers, and you'll get mostly verbal, but sometimes also some written feedback on your specific aims. Next. Budget. Okay, so the pilot and scholar awards have a budget of up to $45,000 in direct costs, meaning that's what it costs to do the research and to cover time, effort, for a 1-year period, which we're anticipating. We're aiming for February 1st to January 31st of 2026. The expenses should be personnel, research supplies, participant incentives or other costs for participants, supplies, community engagement activities, and really true community engagement requires compensation to community partners and community, it should be a win-win. So that should be thought about as part of your budget. And so you do need to have a budget justification, which is just a description of, what the money is being used for. For the pilot awards, we have a minimum requirement of 10% of PI time budgeted for. For the scholar awards, which are more focused on the PI as opposed to a project, but there still is a project, of course, there's a minimum 25% effort. In order to, you can be excused from these minimums if you have a letter from your chair or from a mentor who's funded, who will cover that percentage of your time. So if you have a mentor or a chair, or you have protected time, 10%, you can provide a letter that says that, and you can count that towards the minimum effort. But we just want to make sure that people have time to do the studies that they propose to do. Okay, next. Core services. So, we've been talking about the developmental core. We've talked a little bit about the equitable implementation science core. CHARM also has a mental health disparities core and a methods core. And all of these cores are here to provide consultation, to provide assistance, to provide guidance on the various aspects of an application, and for other things as well that are related to the CHARM focus areas. And we ask that you submit these requests through our navigation portal. It's very easy to use. The first time you use it, you just need to register and give us a little bit of information about yourself. And then it very quickly takes you to what your request is about and who you would like to get advice, consultation from. So please don't be shy about using the portal. This community engagement, I've already talked a bit about it. Every application has to have a community partner, and they have to be truly engaged. They could be engaged in the design of the project. They can be engaged in the implementation of the project. They can be engaged in the interpretation and publication of findings, preferably all of the above. But we do want to see true community engagement in the work that you're doing. And if you don't have a community partner, or you don't know how to reach a community partner, or you've tried reaching them and you're not getting, responses, the CHARM, the Mental Health Disparities Core, which also includes our Community Advisory Board, is great at helping with this, and we can help you to connect you with a community partner. Okay? So don't let that be sort of the hurdle for you doing this. Okay. Again, navigation portal. Next. This is still community engagement. Okay, so there does need to be a letter of support from the community partner. We encourage you to correspond with this partner throughout the process, okay? The proposal needs to explain how the project's going to engage the community, what's the role of the partner, and how the findings from this study can impact or be disseminated to the community. Next. Okay, so reminder, pilot award applications are due August 1st. And to request support, please use the portal. And is there anything else? Let me just mention, here's our core team. Here's our developmental core, all of whom are on this call. We're all here with you, and we are available, and here's our contact information. And as I was mentioned earlier, you are going to have access to these slides. Next. And here's the EIS team. Araceli was on the call and gave the slides earlier, but here are the leads of the EIS team. All right, and one more thing I did want to mention, because I don't, either I passed it or I didn't see it on the slide, is that for the pilot and scholar awards, we're aiming to award 3 awards. We're aiming, which could be 2 scholar and 1 pilot, or vice versa, depending on which applications are the most meritorious. We are aiming for at least 1 of these awards to be focused on implementation science, and the other 2 would be more broadly research studies. I think we're gonna open things up for Q&A. Thank you. And you can ask out loud or you can ask in the chat, whichever works better for you.
Hi, thank you for having this session, and I'm really excited about this potential opportunity. I was curious about the community engagement plan, which is generally not, a standard NIH proposal section, and I was wondering if there was some kind of example of what you were looking for there, or further guidance about that section?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could definitely ask one of our investigators to share, one of our successful pilot awardees to share that with you. And, you know, Yanexi, remind me, is the community engagement part of the 6 pages or is it in addition?
Community engagement is separate from the 6 pages.
Okay, and it's up to 3 pages. I remember.
Yes, correct.
Now it's coming back to me. So it's, so anywhere from 1 to 3 pages. So we are looking for something relatively in depth. And yeah, I think we could share that with you. We'll just ask one of our pilot awardees who's willing to share. So I'm really happy to see you here. For those who don't know, Dr. Applebaum, she is a faculty member at the University of Florida. And even though UF isn't one of our official affiliates, we've invited people in Florida institutions who have some pre-existing relationship. And Dr. Applebaum did a review with us, had a review of a K application that she submitted.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for CHARM. I feel very, very fortunate to have been connected with you all. It's been incredibly supportive of the K process, and so I'm really excited about this opportunity as well. So thank you very much for thinking of me with the RFA.
Does anybody else want to add anything in terms of guidance on community engagement, please? I know I went through those slides relatively quickly. Any other questions? Okay, so if there's no more questions, and please, if you think of a question later, I mean, I always think of stuff, later in the shower or on the I-95, right? If you think of a question later, send us an email and, we're happy to address that. But why don't we go ahead and move on to the brainstorming session? Is there anybody on the call planning,